Summer. Such a delight to be part of her life and her experiences. And she, if you follow her on Facebook, then you know what I'm talking about. She's an amazing writer too, and she puts it all on Facebook. So we are blessed. We are blessed. So this is the greatest moment that you and I have ever lived. We have never been better or greater or more alive than we are right now. You see, as long as we believe that there was a better yesterday or that tomorrow holds for us some guarantee, we are missing out on the greatest moment we will ever have. And that is right now. Right now is where we have the power to change our minds, to have a new thought, or to let go of something we no longer want. Right now. That was actually a declaration by Temple Hayes, who is a Unity minister, and when she started her first ministry in Florida many years ago, that was her declaration. But it holds true today, and it works right now for every one of us. Cousin John decided he wanted to try some ice fishing. So he journeyed up from Tennessee to Minnesota in the dead of winter. The lakes were frozen nicely. He stopped at a little bait shop and got an ice pick. And 2 hours later, he went back to the shop and said, "I'm going to need another dozen ice picks." Well, the fellow in the shop wanted to ask John some questions, but he didn't. He sold him the picks. In about an hour, John was back. I'm going to need all the picks you've got." The bait man just couldn't stand it any longer. He said, "How's the ice fishing going?" "Oh, shucks," John said. "I don't even have the boat in the water yet." Journeyed all the way to Minnesota. 3 friends were traveling together. A cowboy, we got one here in our midst today, a cab driver, and a unitic. Now, not everybody knows what a unitic is, so let me just explain. A unitic is a unity person who is just a lunatic about unity. Unitic. Just bring the two together. I'm one, I'll admit it. Yes, we have a few in here at least, yeah. So here they go. They've been traveling, a cowboy, a cab driver, and a unitic. And after a week, they all had different feelings about their journey. The cowboy was feeling a little blue, missing his ranch. The cab driver longed to be back in his cab in his native Manhattan. The unitic, a rather happy-go-lucky type, was enjoying himself, however, finding the experience rather peaceful. One day, as they were all walking along the beach together, the unitic happened to see an ancient lamp, which he promptly picked up. He rubbed it, and a genie sprang out. "For freeing me from my prison," said the genie, "each one of you shall receive one wish." "I'd like to be back on my ranch," said the cowboy. Poof, he was gone. "I'd like to be driving my hack again," said the cabbie. Poof, he was gone. "And what is your wish?" asked the genie of the unitic. "Well," he said, "I wish my buddies were here with me." Poof, poof, and they were back. How many times have you been somewhere and wished you were somewhere else? Happens all the time. I'm going to get a little bit graphic this morning and tell you I don't know how many times I wake up in the middle of the night with my bladder full. I do not want to get out of bed. I want to just be relieving myself and still be asleep. But as you know, that doesn't work out very well. So we have those opportunities throughout every day and throughout our lives. I know that I would love a vacation right now, but I don't want to do all the planning and all the preparation and all of the going somewhere on a plane or wherever. So you guys may just have to kick me out the door to get me to go. Our spiritual path is the same way. Our journey in spirituality. Think about how many times you wish you were beyond the human condition, right? That you didn't allow that guy who cut you off to upset you so much, maybe. Or the argument you had with someone near and dear to you, and there's that trigger, they call it a trigger. It's like all of a sudden you're chatting and then you're disagreeing or you're blowing your top. So, do you know where you are headed on your spiritual journey? At one point I asked my niece, she's a very, very practical young woman. She is a computer engineer, and I asked her, how is your spiritual life? And she said, I don't know what to say when people ask me that. And so I don't know really what that means. I let it go, because if she had wanted to talk about it further, she certainly would say, what does it mean? What does it mean to you, Aunt Natalie? Or what do you mean when you ask me that? So I let it go, and you know what? She's doing just fine without having to think about where she is spiritually. But if you're anything like me, you do think about those kinds of things. I know I do. I know exactly where I'm headed. I don't know how long it's going to take me, but I intend to get to where Jesus got, and Buddha got, and Lao Tzu, and Krishna, all of those great master teachers. I intend to be there. And certainly there are times when I wish that I could just be there without the journey that it takes to get there, which can be very painful, very challenging at times. Am I the only one? There is a book that Barry and I recently read together, twice, as a matter of fact. We read through it once and decided we wanted to go through it again. And it's a book that was written in 1965 by Eric Butterworth, again, a Unity minister, a very prolific author, teacher, speaker, and Unity minister. He wrote this book in 65. They did a second edition of it in 85, so we're here however many years later, and I want to talk about Unity, A Quest for Truth. That's the book. In fact, now Barry and I have been through it twice. My mom and I, Kathy and I, are reading it together, and I don't see myself stopping anytime soon. You know, our journey, our spiritual path, can take us a lot of places. Maybe into Buddhist temples, maybe into a synagogue, a Jewish synagogue, maybe into the Indian Hinduism even. And then there are some of us who have just picked out what works for us in all the different spiritualities, the religions, the philosophies, and we've created our own. And honestly, I think that that's what more and more people are doing. They're realizing that they don't fit into that hole that is a certain religion, that there's too many things that don't work for them, that don't feel right within. And I'll tell you, Dave and I were just having a discussion. They've been on these travels to Michigan and to Unity Village, as a matter of fact, in Missouri. And recently, it sounds like, 2 of the Unity centers in Grand Rapids, was it, have, very, very large buildings, huge congregations, but in the time since, this is actually something that's been going on. It's a trend that has been going on for decades now, that people are finding their own spirituality and they're not feeling a need to go to a place. And we celebrate that. And we still want to have our place here. So we're glad you're here and supporting our place. But these chairs that you're sitting on this morning are the result of 2 centers in Las Vegas that merged for the same reason, the Unity Center and the Center for Spiritual Living in Las Vegas. And as a matter of fact, you should know that this also came from the Unity in Las Vegas. It was gifted to us, this beautiful Unity lectern and this beautiful altar, too. So we're looking like professionals here, aren't we? If we could just get our screen and our projector and all those little, we know we're tweaking. Randy was here yesterday in the morning and put this up, and it is helping to some degree. And what we really need probably is a blackout in that area. So we'll keep working on that. We will get, it's a journey just like everything else. We will get there. So I want to take a few quotes from the book by Eric Butterworth this morning, Quest for Truth. He says, a religion to be a contemporary influence must be redefined for every generation in the light of that day's thought. Few religions in all history have done this, and yet there is an inner restlessness in us all that is never fully satisfied until we find God. Michel de Montaigne said, we are born to inquire after truth. So what is truth? Well, I believe that each one of us has to find that for ourselves. And what Unity becomes for us is a sort of tool or a pathway that can offer great teachings and inspiration and guidance. It's not a religion. It doesn't have to become a place where you go. And, I'm going to talk myself out of a job this morning, right? But I believe that Unity that was established in 1889, so it's well over 130 some years, yes, there are places that you can go to visit Unity as a space, but Unity is a state of mind. Unity is consciousness. Unity is what we create wherever we go, or don't create wherever we go. Another quote. I love this one. I posted this on Facebook a few months ago. Unity is not a church in the usual sense, but an institution for scientific self-discovery and self-unfoldment. It asks not what is your background, your religious affiliation, your state or station in life. It asks only, what is your interest, your aspiration, your vision of life? Unity students are a strange and wonderful fellowship of people of all religious backgrounds, affiliations, of all races, of all levels of the social structure, meeting on the level of their spiritual unity with each other in the common quest for spiritual unity with God. Does that speak to you? Yeah, powerfully speaks to me. I love that. Wherever I am is holy. Wherever you are is holy. We are holy indeed. Recently I've had, one was I was being graphic earlier, I might as well just be totally honest. Over the last month, it has been a roller coaster with my dad making his transition and us moving from the Shrine Building over here. And there were some nights that I could not sleep. And my mom is always talking about how great she sleeps. And she takes these little gummies. Yeah. That's trying to get a thumbs up from a lot of people. For those of you on Facebook, thumbs up and heads nodding. So I tried one night. And I did not sleep. I had a trip. Leave it to Natalie. But it was a fascinating trip because I was essentially going in my mind to that place of that line of stepping over to true awakening and enlightenment. And the line that I kept coming up against, obviously I couldn't get there. I didn't quite get over, but the line was, whenever any concern came up in my mind, I thought, could I let go of that? Could I leave now and let it be just the way that it is? Nope. So, try again. What about this one? Could I leave it just the way it is? Would it be okay for me to leave? And no. And that's where I was. It seemed like for hours just. And so it was a great lesson for me. It's like, okay, I know exactly where I stand with this whole journey towards enlightenment. I am still very attached to a lot of things, and a lot of people, a lot of experiences. And how about you? And then last night I had a dream, and it was essentially the same thing. I had come to a place where everyone was going to leave their bodies. And so I was in a hurry to be able to do that without attachments, so that I could truly leave, so that I could leave this experience and not just create another one to go into. I mean, that's, if you believe in reincarnation, which I absolutely do, that's exactly what we do. The Buddhists believe that if at the end of our lives we are still clinging, holding on to something is unresolved, all that energy, when the body dies, simply goes searching for the next way, the next opportunity to finally resolve whatever it is that we've left unresolved here. Breathe. And we are absolutely perfect just where we are. We have, if you've ever looked us up online, you will see that we have a presence. If you put in a search for a spiritual center in near me is the search, then we will come up. We'll probably be the top choice that comes up in terms of this area locally for spiritual centers. But because of that, Google sends us a business profile report every month. tells us how many interactions we've had. Last month we had 66 interactions. But let me tell you what people are searching for. 54 people were searching for Buddhism out of those 66 interactions. 17 were just looking for a spiritual city in Arizona. And less than 15% just looking again for a spiritual city. So maybe they were looking for Sedona. I visited Sedona for the first time. I was living in Baltimore at the time, and this was back in the 90s. Yeah, like 95 maybe, 96. I made a trip. It was a spiritual quest, right? I'd heard all about how spiritual Sedona was, and so I went, and I did have a pretty powerful experience. One that I created, though. You know, it wasn't something magic about Sedona. I love Sedona. And visiting all the vortexes, right? And I brought back some of that vortex energy in a can. You can get it. Did you know? You can buy the vortex energy in a can and bring it home. So I took it home with me to Baltimore, knowing very well that's not where the magic is. So, but I love that. It's like people are searching, and they don't want to have to fit in to a religion. And the reality is, I'll tell you, I have a quote here that I wanted to share. What am I doing with my notes? Buddhism is not a religion. The Buddha does not require worship. Neither does Jesus, by the way, or any other master teacher. The Buddha tells us or shows us how to realize our true nature as he did. And that's exactly what Jesus did and does today as well. A quest for truth. What does that look like for you? What is truth? We would love actually to study that book with you. It's actually not a very big or thick book, and it's one of Eric Butterworth's more understandable writings. Discover the Power Within You, which is what many of us started out with Eric Butterworth, is so heavy in content that we could, if we met, we would discuss one sentence for a class time. I mean, it's just that heavy on spiritual content, that powerful. He's an amazing, eloquent writer. He was, but we're still certainly benefiting from that. So when I think about my own quest for truth and realize that I grew up in a very traditional home, actually, that was traditionally Christian, or came out of traditional Christianity. But what I have benefited from and been grateful for so many times in my life is that my parents really chose a path of freedom from religion and self-discovery and their own path, spiritual path. So I had to really do that too. And I had a lot of good beginnings because of what my parents were able to offer me. But I know that in like college, for instance, I studied for a while mythology. Have any of you read some of the Greek and Roman mythology? And when you read it, you're like, well, that's so clearly not true, right? And yet, there's also this sense that there is some truth in it. And I actually look at the Bible the same way. Don't shoot me! But there is, In fact, in Unity, we call it looking at the Bible as history and allegory. So the stories are supposed to make sense in our own lives, not necessarily be interpreted literally. So we see the Bible we interpret the Bible metaphysically as a metaphysical representation of our humankind's spiritual evolution. So we've talked about this before on Sunday mornings, but I know some of you are new, so think about it. Starting out with, in the New Testament in particular, that God that they believed in, that was wrathful, who killed babies and did, really horrific things. And think about the progression all the way through to when Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within you. And so that evolution obviously continues. We reference from time to time the Inquisition, and I just have to say this. I had this, actually posted this. It says, okay, let's go over this one more time. This is not a Christian nation. It is a nation in which you are free to be Christian. It's why we came here to this land, because we were being persecuted by, I'm saying we, because those of us who are sitting right here, if you were back in the 1400s through 1800s, you would have been burned on the stake for your beliefs, for being in a place like this. In fact, people were basically in Spain given the choice, either become a Christian or go into exile. You had to leave. Can you imagine that? And here we are. We have these great freedoms to believe, and what it means, it is eternally expansive. It is infinitely expansive, the possibilities, the potential for us spiritually and in so many ways. So 32,000 executions during the Spanish Inquisition, just for people who did not want to follow Christianity. I'd like to read a poem. This was posted by Fran. Fran and Don aren't here today, a little under the weather. But I'll tell you, if you can meet Fran and if you could follow her on Facebook, you will go amazing places. So this poem is by Chellan Harkin. The worst thing we ever did was put God in the sky, out of reach, pulling the divinity from the leaf, sifting out the holy from our very bones, insisting God isn't bursting dazzlement through everything we've made a hard commitment to see as ordinary, stripping the sacred from everywhere, to put in a cloud man elsewhere, prying closeness from your heart. The worst thing we ever did was take the dance and the song out of prayer, made it sit up straight, cross our legs, removed it of rejoicing, wiped clean its hip sway, its questions, its ecstatic yowl, its tears. The worst thing we ever did is pretend God isn't the easiest thing in this universe, available to every soul in every breath. When you start to study New Thought, when you start to study unity, if you become a unitic, a unity student, you will realize this is not an easy path. In fact, it's been said that a lot of people leave New Thought because it's not easy to change our thinking and to practice that moment by moment to choose a better life. And it really is, it comes down to that. How's that working for you? We got one thumbs up. Oh, we got two. Oh, there's more. Okay. Yeah, please don't leave because it's too hard. We will help you. We will help you. So I have a quote from Byron Katie, what we might call a contemporary spiritual teacher, or I would say she's pretty darn enlightened. This is what she says. I have simply stopped arguing with reality. How do I know the wind should blow? It's blowing. How do I know this is the highest order? It's happening. Arguing with what is like teaching a cat to bark. It's not very fulfilling. I am my friend, and I am no longer confused. The way I know that reality is good is that when I argue the point, I experience tension, fear, and frustration. I lose. Not sometimes, but 100% of the time. It just doesn't feel natural inside. No balance, no connection. I want reality to change? Hopeless. Let me change my thinking. Some of us mentally argue with what is. Others of us attempt to control and change what is. And then tell ourselves and others that we actually had something to do with an apparent change that took place. This leaves no connection or room for God in my life. In the peaceful experience of no opposition to God, I remain aware of my nature, clear, vibrant, a friend, a listener. Byron Katie. Ooh. So I'm going to move us I'm going to say, and so it is. And then let's have a time of meditation on these thoughts this morning. I just looked at the time and realized I was out of it. So, we've got all these gadgets now. We've got a Wi-Fi adapter and a Bluetooth adapter and remotes for everything. And we are grateful. So join me. How about let's find a place within us of gratitude. Maybe there is something, someone, or maybe you can just bring it up for no reason. And I invite you to take a nice deep breath. Deeply relaxing into this moment, into the chair. Bring your attention to where your body meets the chair and just appreciate for this moment what it took for you to be able to sit in that chair. There were two spiritual communities that merged in Las Vegas. And so there needed to be some negotiating. And then a couple of angels needed to say, I will go and get the chairs. And then there needed to be people here who carried the chairs in. Sometimes we forget all that it takes for us to be able to eat that apple, to lie in that bed, to sleep well at night, to have the simple privilege of being on a spiritual path which is not like anyone else's. Feeling the gratitude now? Some of us prefer to have some containment. Some of us prefer to have some guidance. And so I am grateful for unity. I'm grateful for this space, yes, but I am grateful for the unity that's not contained within any walls, but is alive within my heart and my mind in consciousness. And I am grateful for you because I know that together we can move beyond our perceived limitations, individually and as a spiritual community. We've already done it, and we can do more. And we can be more. And we can rest too, because that sounds like a lot of doing and being. And letting ourselves rest is so important. Letting the mind and the body relax. And so here we are, allowing the flow of this moment, being present to now, and coming back when we find our minds wandering, coming back to that gentle, subtle feeling of the air from the air conditioning on your arms, or the sound of my voice, or where your body meets the chair, or the breath. You choose. You have the freedom to choose. And so let us just stay in that place for a moment, just dwelling in the silence with the music. And then another few deep breaths as we prepare to return to our outer experience. Silently affirming, I am divine flow. And so it is. So it is. Amen.